Welcome to Demo Day. Today, we will present the ProSim 8 Patient Monitor Simulator. Jerry Zion, Global Technical Training Manager for Fluke Biomedical and Fluke Health Solutions, is our presenter today, and we'll cover this topic and address any questions. But before we get started, we would like to share a brief video and then engage you with a few poll questions.
Patient monitor testing can be quicker and easier than ever before with ProSim 8 from Fluke Biomedical. We're going to do a patient monitor test, and we're going to try and do a complete but quick test of this patient monitor. The parameters we're going to test are ECG rate, respiratory rate, invasive blood pressure, channel 1. We're going to do a cuff blood pressure NIBP measurement and oximetry. We're going to try and get all of this testing done in under 5 minutes. As you can see, there's a digital clock shown in the lower left-hand corner of the patient monitor display. So you can be your own judge as to whether we can get through this test within 5 minutes or not. So as I begin the test, we are already connected to the device under test. All of the connections have been made ahead of time, including the NIBP cuff. And we are going to zero our invasive blood pressure transducers on the patient monitor at the very first step of what we do, followed by a selection of a simulation of all coordinated patient parameters. We'll do hypertensive first, followed by normal, followed by hypotensive, in order to assess whether we have a performing patient monitor. We will compare the displayed values on the ProSim 8 against what's displayed on the patient monitor at each set of simulated parameters. Are you ready? Let's begin now. First thing I'm going to do is 0 P1. It is at 0. And now what I'm going to do is pick hypertensive. And the simulation will already begin, so I'm going to start a blood pressure, cuff blood pressure reading. In this case, we're looking for an ECG rate of 130 beats per minute, respiratory rate of 40. We're looking for an invasive blood pressure display of 200 over 150. We're looking for NIBP of 200 over 150 with a mean of 167, and an SpO2 reading of 90. And it looks to me like we've got all of those on the patient monitor. 130, invasive blood pressure 198 over 149 with a mean of 167, and we have 90 O2 sat and 197 over 142 with a mean of 165 on the cuff. Let's move to normal. The normal simulation includes heart rate, ECG rate of 60 beats per minute, a respiratory rate of 20 breaths per minute, invasive blood pressure of 120 over 80, a cuff blood pressure of 120 over 80 with a mean of 93, and SpO2 at 100% O2 sat. As you can see, the patient monitor is already displaying 60 beats per minute for heart rate. It's gotten 119 over 79 with a mean of 93 for invasive blood pressure. And the cuff is making its measurement now for the O2 sat, or for the NIBP reading. O2 sat is 100%. There we go, 121 over 77 versus 120 over 80, pretty good. We'll go to hypotensive now and start another cuff measurement. We're looking for an ECG rate of 40 beats per minute, respiratory rate of 15 breaths per minute, and invasive blood pressure measurement of 50/20, and cuff blood pressure of 50/20 with a mean of 30, and an O2 sat of 97%. You can see that the ECG rate on the monitor is already 40. Our invasive blood pressure is 50/19, very close to 50/20. Our cuff is working on getting its measurement, and the O2 sat is 97, right on with what we asked for, what we're simulating. We started at 18:55 and 44 or 45 seconds, and we're going to finish very shortly here. Done. And we have good values. As you can see, it is possible to do a complete, quick assessment of patient monitor performance using ProSim 8 and front panel controls in under 5 minutes.
Here. And so now let's launch a couple of our poll questions. And the poll questions are launching. And let's see, I'm not certain what's going on here, but the poll
So
questions.
we're seeing the poll question, Edna.
You are? Okay, good.
So
Thanks, Jerry.
so what we want to know here, gang, is this is Jerry. What parameters are you testing? So we know what we showed in the video, but what ones are you testing? And so this is a multiple response. So you check off all that apply. So whatever that may be, we're just trying to get information here. So please fill in, please, as many of you as possible respond. And then we'll see what our results are across all of us in this great conversation we're going to have today.
Thanks, Jerry. Give it about 30 more seconds and then we will close it. Good feedback. And we're down to about 15. And let's go ahead and close the poll question. Okay. And let's share it.
Wow. Good. So quite an interesting scattering. So and you would expect so. So only about 70% of you though are including cardiac output simulation as a test. And that may be because you're not testing ICU or monitors that would include that parameter that you might find in the ICU or in surgery. So we get that. Fetal maternal is kind of a specialization. Almost every monitor will have ECG included in it, as well as these days, as well as impedance respiration, probably temperature of some kind, and invasive blood pressure only in the ICU and surgery and maybe in the ER. NIBP and SpO2 pulse oximetry are going to always be in there. 50%, a little bit better, 53% of you that responded are testing all of those. So that's really, really good. So good information.
Wonderful.
Edna, let's go to the next one then.
Okay, let's go to the next one.
All right, here's a question question for you. Is the 5-minute test that we demonstrated in the video, is that test, the part of that test about NIBP, is that enough to be comfortable with the safety and performance of NIBP? Yes or no? And again, this is your opinion, and we're looking for information here. So please, again, as many as you can, please respond, and then we'll collect and see what our results are.
About another 30 seconds, and then we'll close. And the poll is closing. And close. And now let's share.
So 77% of you thought that the parameters that we evaluated in the demo for NIBP was enough to be satisfied that NIBP safety and performance is okay. 23% of you said no. And I kind of lean to that group that says no. And here's why. Because NIBP accuracy can never be determined by dynamic simulation. The only thing that can be determined by dynamic simulation of NIBP is repeatability, and that's all. Accuracy requires that we do static pressure comparisons, and in order to do that, we have to be in the service mode of the patient monitor and in the NIBP section to verify several things, including accuracy. So when we get into that service mode, then it's important for us to first do a leak check on the NIBP system to make sure that it can hold pressure within reason. Now, every pneumatic system has a little leak, so we just want to make sure that the leak rate is within acceptable tolerances. The next thing that we want to verify is the safety relief in NIBP. That's what protects the patient from the NIBP pump in the patient monitor from overpressurizing the cuff, making it too tight and painful, and actually possibility of doing tissue damage if it's not able to be relieved. So we don't want that kind of a problem to happen during clinical use. So it's really important that we check the performance and safety of that safety relief valve for NIBP. So that would add to the amount of time that it takes. And once we've done those two tests, leak test and the safety relief test, then we would do a static pressure comparison to make sure that if I have 120 millimeters of mercury on the patient monitor transducers, that I see 120 millimeters of mercury displayed on the screen. So whether that pressurization comes from ProSim 8 or whether it comes from the patient monitor, I want my ProSim 8 to tell me what's really there and compare that to what's on the display screen of the patient monitor in the service mode for NIBP, and evaluate several different pressure settings in order to do that. And most patient monitor manufacturers include more than one static pressure level when they want that NIBP performance, accuracy performance evaluated. So that would add some time. Now, my opinion and my experience is that it wouldn't add a whole lot more time. So maybe it takes longer than 5 minutes to determine a full patient monitor performance test. When I add in these extra tests for NIBP, it's still not going to be more than 10, certainly not more than 15 minutes. Now, why am I worried about how much time it takes? Look, y'all have way more to do just in testing alone than you have time. to get around to for everything. I know how it is because I've carried the bag. I've done what you do. So time is important to us, but the right amount of time should be spent to make sure everything is safe and effective for clinical use. So even if we took 15, our prior surveys that we've done worldwide now, not just with the United States, but worldwide, show us that if you follow the patient monitor manufacturer's test procedure, you may take 50, that's 50 minutes per patient monitor. If I can reduce that to 15 and still get all of the testing the manufacturer wants done, why would I not do that? Now I can really add more. I can get more patient monitors tested, or I can get patient monitors plus something else tested. And don't forget, we need to add in the electrical safety part of the test because we need to perform electrical safety testing on this patient monitor as well. That would add about 3 minutes. So that's why I say 15 minutes to get everything in still saves us a huge amount of time when we have patient parameters that are all correlated with each other so that what we send, we can compare what we see to what we send and make sure it's all working properly and still do the safety tests. All right, do we have one more poll question, Edna, or?
Oh, sure. Sure, absolutely. So let's go to the last poll question. And I'm going to launch that.
Okay, again, we're looking for information from all of you. How do you document your test results? Some of you still use pen and paper and put it in a filing cabinet. Do you use a spreadsheet or do you use some kind of software? And so again, there's no correct answers here necessarily. It is your process and procedure. We're respectful of that, but we'd like to know. So please, as many of you as possible, respond and provide us some information. Again, this is multiple response, so check box all of them that apply to you because you may do more than one of these.
We have about 15 seconds. Good responses. And let's go ahead and close, Jerry.
Okay.
All right, and sharing.
Wow. So this is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
About 34% are using pen and paper. And so the question is, how does that play into whatever else you're doing? 37% of you use a spreadsheet, and that's kind of cool because that's already in an electronic form, and therefore it can be analyzed because at least it's in an electronic form. Or other software, about 51% of you are using other software, and those softwares might be part of your CMMS or computerized maintenance management system, your database as it were, that allow you perhaps to do longer term trend analysis, especially on failed tests. So you might be doing pen and paper, and then in order to close your work assignment in the database, you may then use software, or you may use a spreadsheet and then transfer it. I kind of understand there's a lot of different things going on here that are possibilities. But isn't this interesting to know for all of you that are participating in this demo day, kind of what we're all doing? And I would like to bring us back around to efficiency and effectiveness in testing, however, because we really would like just one test procedure, one workflow that we follow. Might be brand and model of patient monitor, might be specific to the brand and model. It could be category specific. In other words, I have one test procedure I use for all patient monitors. I don't care what brand and model, but that kind of doesn't allow for the manufacturer's requirements relative to specific functionality they've designed into their patient monitors that may be existing in a different way in other companies and other brands of patient monitor. So wouldn't it be nice to just have one workflow, one test procedure that allowed us to use whatever test equipment we have, whether it is made to be interoperable with a software, or whether it is simply, we simply have to have instructions about how to set it up, connect it up, and configure the tests that we need to perform and collect the results. Now that can be more manual or more automatic depending on the amount of interoperability and how we display the work assignment. So I know where a lot of us are experimenting and we would like to just do it with our cell phone, right on our cell phone. For me, I'm kind of an older guy. I've been around a while, and it's too small, the display screen for me. So a tablet might work better for me. But then if it's only text, what about those of us that have dyslexia or dysnomia? Then text is not our friend, right? So we need some way to understand what it is in the procedure. So how about visually guided workflows? A test procedure with visual guidance in it. And then the interoperability of our test instrument would allow us to be able to configure the test instrument for what needs to happen next, and then make it happen and either observe the results on the display screen of the patient monitor and enter them a little bit more manually and evaluate those against predetermined test limits. All right, so that speeds the testing. The best way to do it would be to have some sort of closed loop testing where the patient monitor measurements automatically come back in, because with a patient simulator like ProSim 8 or the ProSim family, we have a signal generator that's specialized for patient monitor testing. And we're sending known signals, that is signals we know what we're sending, into the front end of the monitor. But then to determine whether those are good or not, we have to look and see what's displayed on the screen and make some entries somehow. So right now where we're all at is kind of there. So ProSim 8 gives us a whole lot of ways to do that, both in terms of not just the presets that we set, that we demonstrated in the video, but also in something called auto sequences, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. That's the high end, and some of you are already saying, well, Jerry, you know, I love your Fluke stuff, but it's kind of expensive for me. My budget kind of doesn't allow it. Okay, we get that. That's why we have other patient simulators in the family. And you could do something very similar to what we demonstrated, and there's a video showing that using ProSim 8 and the ProSim Spotlight. So you would have two things to carry, not just one, and that would make it quite easy for you to do a similar 5-minute assessment of the patient monitor, at least the part of the patient monitor except for electrical safety. So those are some of the things that work with what we're trying to do. So I think, Edna, we can launch our last poll question.
Actually, okay, we did that one, Jerry. That was the
Oh,
three
we did it
poll
already.
question.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yep.
Okay,
That was the third
so
one.
so the software that I'm talking about that we have, it's not Answer. Answer is our prior test automation software, and that was good. But now we're talking about OneQA. So just going to name it, give it a name. We're not going to talk a lot more about it in this presentation unless you have questions. So I think we're ready for our Q&A.
Okay, wonderful. So Jerry, first question, how many test records can be saved in the ProSim 8?
Okay, I'm going to answer with my very favorite answer to any question. It depends. All right, so our official statement, our claim, is that we'll hold 1,000 test records. However, the question you should be asking is, what is in each test record? How much information is in each test record? And how does that play into whether I get a full 1,000 test records before I have to download those into my software or to some other electronic archive location, server drive someplace or something. But the official claim is 1,000 test records is what the onboard memory of ProSim 8 will hold. It's not designed for you to keep everything there forever. It's designed for those records to actually be downloaded into some other archival system or software. So, but it allows you to get out and do a whole lot of testing in a given testing day. And that's kind of what we're talking about.
Okay, great. Another question came in. How long does the ProSim 8 battery last?
The ProSim 8 battery, the way that we have to make this statement and this claim is really kind of legalistic. So I'm going to give you the legalistic response. And that is that with a new battery, fully charged, it should last at least 8 hours of operating time. Now, you should also ask the question to yourself, well, what limits that? What would shorten that amount of useful battery use on battery? And primarily, it's whether anytime we need to use ProSim 8 as a pressure source, then we have a pressure pump inside. The more you use the pressure pump, the more electricity from the battery that it needs to use. So the more you need to use the ProSim 8 as a pressure source, that will begin to use up some of the battery. So whether it will last you a full 8 hours or not, it should, but those are the kinds of things that come into play with that claim. So it should last about 8 hours.
Okay, good feedback. Have a couple more questions, Jerry, and then I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the Knowledge Center. How do I use auto sequences and presets, and can they be customized?
Okay, so we showed you in the demo video about the use of presets, that is the factory delivered presets. There's extra room for you to create custom presets so that you can set up the patient parameters that you want to use over and over and over, and allows you to select which preset you're going to use. You can do that through the menus on the ProSim 8. Yes, they can be customized, and yes, we've made it so that the factory delivered presets cannot be overwritten, so that those will always be there for you. The other way that you can do the same testing that we showed you on the demo video is to run the patient monitor auto sequence, which is in the special functions, under the special functions button menu of the ProSim 8. And that actually does the test exactly the same as we showed it to you in the demo video, but you don't have to push each of the preset buttons. It already has those built into a little flow and sequence of dynamic simulation that it's going to allow you to do. You do it the same way as we showed it on the video. So every time it changes to a different, from hypertensive to normal to hypotensive, you're going to do the same thing as I did on the video. You're going to start a new NIBP measurement so that you get all of your parameters. Now, one of the things we didn't talk about in that video is that if you have your alarm limits for each parameter set in a normal way around a healthy patient or a typical patient, then what's going to happen when you go to the hypertensive is it's going to exceed the high limit alarms and set off those alarms. And then normal should allow those alarms to quiet down, both visual and audible alarms. And then when you go to hypotensive, it'll challenge the low limits for those alarms. So you're evaluating the alarms along with everything else. We didn't talk about that in the video, but that's exactly what happens. So you can also customize auto sequences, and there's like extra room in the memory for you to be able to save your custom auto sequences, again, for those things that you're going to do repeatedly over and over. So both presets and auto sequences can be customized, and then you can save them for use as you need.
Okay, great, Jerry. One more question. I
Mm-hmm.
am just curious how ProSim simulates temperature to the monitor. Does it have like a heater source?
No, it is the thermistors that are used for measuring patient temperature in patient monitors. And I'm not talking about I'm talking about skin temperature, and I'm talking about rectal temperature measurements. Those thermistors are actually respond to a change in current that's based on a change in resistance. So what ProSim 8 does in order to simulate temperature is it provides a particular resistance that results in a patient monitor display at whatever temperature set point that you put into ProSim 8. So it's just the same way as you would do it if you were doing accuracy tests around temperature on a patient monitor or anything else that measures temperature. In this case, it's a electronic signal, an electrical signal. It is not. It doesn't have a heater or anything in it like that.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jerry. Great
Mhm.
questions from the audience. Did you want to talk a little bit about some of our online resources as well?
Yeah. So, how can you find out more about medical device quality assurance testing? How to use particular individual test instruments that we provide to you? And you can do that through several different ways. Advantage Training is our free online training portal, and it actually has academic style courses. And one course series is about medical device quality assurance testing. So there's about 18 courses in that grouping. And then for learning how to use particular test instruments that we make for you, those are found in the Introduction to Using course series within Advantage Training. And the way that works is you register and enroll in the course or courses that you want to take. You go through the courses, and at the end of each course, there is a quiz. You can take that quiz as many times as it takes you to pass. When you pass the course quiz, you will automatically receive a certificate of completion. And it doesn't have any CEUs or anything attached to it. It's just a certificate of completion. For those of you that are certified through AECI as CBETs, are able to use that PDF of your certificate of completion as physical evidence of learning. So you keep track in your diary and back it up with the certificate of completion, and that keeps you from having to go pay for and retake the certification test. The other way that you can continue your learning is through our Empower webinars. Like today is a demo day webinar. We have other webinars that have one CEU of ACI credit built into it, and again, a certificate of participation that shows that one CEU, and again, you use that as your physical objective evidence. In the video library, we have, like the video that we played today, there are many more of those introducing product and showing demonstrations of how it might be used. So please go ahead and visit those as well. So All of those are available to you on the Fluke Biomedical website under Knowledge Center.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jerry. And I just want to say to all the attendees, thank you for joining today's webinar. We greatly appreciate your attendance.